The Israeli Prime Minister has some very bold rhetoric on those attacks.
Yes, understandable, because this is a huge step, a step that Israel has in the past been reluctant to undertake. It's been urged recently not to take this step by the United States, but something has obviously changed. The US was clearly aware Israel was preparing to make this move. It allowed military families to evacuate from bases in the Gulf region and told diplomats to stay in the cities in which they were based in the Middle East. An Israeli security official has been quoted in the local media here as saying these attacks were undertaken with full coordination of the United States, even though the United States Secretary of State has denied any involvement. So it's an enormous step. It's one that Israel was discouraged from taking by major players in the region, such as the Gulf countries. They're very worried about the potential for a regional war. But you heard Benjamin Netanyahu saying there that Israel felt that it had no longer had the option of waiting for the nuclear talks, and what we've seen here is widespread strikes across Iran. There was targeting of nuclear scientists working for Iran's enrichment program. That Israel has done that before with targeted assassinations. It's believed to have been behind the killing of nuclear scientists in the past, but killing scientists as part of broad strikes across military and other infrastructure in Iran makes this a very widespread and an attack that has really heavy implications for the entire region now.
Eric, you are in Jerusalem. What's happening where you are now?
So at just before 3 a.m. local time, they sounded sirens and put out the highest level of alert. That's in Israel. There's an extensive alarm system. So the Israeli Home Front Command, which is the office of the military that deals, with the public during military emergencies, has warned everyone to be on high alert. It's restricted public gatherings. They sounded the sirens to alert people that the attacks had occurred and that Iranian retaliation could come at any time. Since then, there's been no warning of an imminent attack, but people have been told that public gatherings are banned. They need to stay near shelters. They should be prepared for multiple days of conflict, and there are reports that Israel's also closed its airspace at least for the next several days. The Israeli military says that the population here will need to be resilient. It's trying to prepare people's expectations that there may be further restrictions, there may be missile strikes. Last year there were two separate ballistic missile barrages fired by Iran towards Israel in response to some Israeli actions, and the second of those waves managed to penetrate Israel's air defences and targeted intelligence and military sites. So the population here is obviously going to have to get ready for potential large-scale attacks from Iran in response to these strikes.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Eric Torchek reporting there from Jerusalem. And North America correspondent Carrington Clark joins us now live from Washington, D.C. And Carrington, how has the US responded?
Yeah, this is obviously a fluid situation, but the top official so far to publicly comment is the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. And what is fascinating is that America is making clear that it was not involved in these strikes. That's the main point they want to make. And when we saw what Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel was trying to do in his statement, in part, was to try to project the image of America and Israel together going up against Iran. But the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has made clear that America was not involved in these strikes. And the language is quite fascinating. He's saying, Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense. Though America is not definitively saying that they agree with that sentiment. And we know that in recent days in particular, but really over the last few months, that Donald Trump repeatedly has said that he wants to find a diplomatic solution when it comes to Iran. Earlier today, we heard him make comments. He said that when asked about whether or not a strike was imminent, he said he wouldn't want to use that term, but it was possible it would occur. But he said he wanted more time. He wanted more time for a deal to be struck with Iran, that he believed that there was still a diplomatic solution potential. So This is going to be fascinating to see how this now plays out. And I guess one of the one of the quickest questions that we'll be looking for an answer on is whether or not America might be involved in any sort of defensive maneuvers for Israel if we do see Iran now attempt to strike Israel. Again, Marco Rubio making clear that the American priority is the protection of its own troops, but in the most recent barrage of missiles and drones that Iran sent towards Israel, America was key to knocking them out of the sky. Now the question becomes, how involved will America be this time around? And that may give us some indication of just how Donald Trump feels about this particular strike. But this is a dangerous situation. These are two of the most powerful militaries in the Middle East. Although Iran may not currently have a nuclear weapon, it has an impressive arsenal that could be deployed here, and this could very quickly become a very dangerous situation. We have seen America pull out staff from Iraq in the region, what have been described as non-essential personnel in recent times, obviously aware that there was the risk of this occurring. But the question, of course, becomes, first of all, what will Iran's response be, and then what will America do? But this is a dangerous situation, a worrying situation, and obviously a huge amount of attention now will be on the first comments we hear from the American President, Donald Trump.
What does this latest development mean in terms of the nuclear talks set to take place between the US and Iran?
I mean, this is a very fluid, difficult to read situation. America is, it appears, trying to disassociate itself from Israel's action. And the question, of course, is whether or not Iran is willing to buy that argument that this is Israel acting without American support, and whether or not that means that they're more willing to continue the talks. I mean, Donald Trump, when asked about what it would mean to the potential for the talks if we saw an Israeli strike on Iran, as we now have seen, he first said it would be bad for those talks, for those negotiations, but then he seemed to then he suggested that perhaps it could work the other way. It might give them more incentive to talk. So, I mean, this is a great unknown at this point. We have to wait to see exactly how Iran will choose to respond. We also don't know at this point the level of the destruction within the country. But this is a very, as I say, dangerous situation, and unknown at this point. And you can be assured there's going to be back-channeling occurring right now as some people try to calm the situation because they don't want this to escalate further. But it remains to be seen exactly how Donald Trump will respond. And again, we assume that he was given, we know that they were given forewarning, but exactly whether or not he was trying to push Israel to not do this, how explicit his views on this issue were in private to the Prime Minister of Israel. But this may be a test of the relationship. And there are growing numbers of conservative members of the Republican Party and people who are close to the president who have been really pushing the argument that America does not want to be drawn into this war with Iran, another war in the Middle East. So we wait to see exactly what the response will be.